Welcome to the Cleveland Heights Municipal Services and Environmental Sustainability Committee meeting. I would like to call roll, which is, in this case, myself, Gail Larson, the chair, and my vice chair, Jim Posh. We're also welcoming to the table Chris Brace. And I have promised Councillor Posh that we will be done with this by 6:30, so I think we can do that. What I wanted to do to introduce what we're talking about tonight is we have, Chris has worked very hard and other members of the committee worked hard with Director Klingscale and Eric Zampt, Director Zampt, on this product. So it's not, it has been combined with the administration, so we have buy-in from them.
Okay.
And I would just like to read, Chris actually rewrote it quite a bit of the original legislation, which was passed in 2018. But this this document now starts out with the definition. And I think that that's what I really want to see happen in our projects going forward. And we have a commitment from the city that we'll start to see more, especially on the bigger project. Mm-hmm. So the definition that Chris wrote was complete and green streets are networks of roadways, streets, trails, sidewalks, and pathways thoughtfully designed to safely, comfortably, and conveniently accommodate all users, including pedestrians, cyclists, transit riders, motorists, individuals with disabilities, seniors, delivery and service personnel, and emergency responders. Additionally, these roadways integrate effective stormwater management practices aimed at reducing, absorbing, and or slowing stormwater runoff. And where we're at right now is this legislation came out as a recommendation from the Transportation and Mobility Committee. Mm-hmm. And then it went before us and we agreed to send it to law for vetting. Mm-hmm. And Director Hanna has, for the most part, signed off on it. Mm-hmm. So I'm at the point right now where we should be asking ourselves this evening, are we ready to have it go back to council for a vote to be put on an agenda? So that's where we're at. So Chris, I don't expect you to go through the whole document. Mm-hmm. But would you kind of share how you built that relationship with Director Klingscale and Director Zampt, and where you're at with the changes that you made in recognition of their expertise and the positions that they hold in the city?
Yeah, absolutely. This was definitely a collaborative effort here. We knew that this policy needed to be modernized. It hadn't been touched in, I think, 7 or 8 years, and our understanding of what makes a good complete and green streets policy has evolved locally and nationally over that time. The overwhelming majority of the changes were boilerplate, but the Transportation and Mobility Committee had some thoughts around the types of projects that we wanted to see a tighter collaboration on and how we might structure that relationship in a way that is maximally effective with a minimal imposition on the valuable time of individuals who are employed by the city. So we wrote up a draft. We invited both Directors Klingscale of the Public Works Department and Director Zampt of Planning to different meetings of the committee, learned about the work that they do, got their feedback on the proposal, made changes based on that, and then had a productive back and forth by email as well to get this last set of changes integrated and to get to something that all parties felt was a good compromise.
Can I ask a question real quick? So you used the word compromise, I think, twice now. I mean, was it really a compromise? Was it more horse trading where someone would get something and other people wouldn't get one, or was this more of a like building consensus?
Mm-hmm. A lot of it's consensus.
Hi, Howard.
Howard.
Howard Meyer has just joined the room. He's also a member of the Transportation Mobility Committee.
A lot of it was consensus building. There was a lot of discussion around how the interface point should work. Obviously, in years past, there have been permanent standing members of the administration at every transportation and mobility committee meeting. That stopped a few years ago. It was felt that we needed to restart that collaboration to some extent, but that we also needed to be respectful of the time of city employees. So one of the compromises that we landed on was that, given reasonable notice, senior staff of the relevant city departments will make themselves available to discuss matters of import before the transportation, I'll just call it the TMC, but that we would not ask them to attend every meeting, recognizing that their time, and especially their evening time, is especially valuable.
You
Okay.
also,
Thanks.
there were compromises in some of the semantics, the syntax, excuse me, and the meeting that Chris and I attended with Director Zanft and Director Klinkscale was a good reflection to me of what that compromise was, that process, because Director Zanft had input on the document, which I believe you added in his perspective into the document. And then it went to Director Klinkscale, and she actually, the last version has red lines in it for changing the word shall to should.
Yes.
That's a compromise, which it was important to her because she did not want to be told by this legislation that she must do this. She wanted the way she does her job, the way she assigns projects, what she does with the design that comes across to her department for the projects should be something that she's aware of, but may not have to she would not have to apply it every time that she had a project in front of her. So that was a big compromise. Yeah.
We definitely specifically targeted that. There were a few types of projects, and I'd classify this more as a refinement than a compromise.
Okay.
But that we definitely did intentionally exclude from the strongest language, because we recognize, for instance, that Cleveland Public Water does not like paying for any roadway improvement that isn't directly above their pipe. Same, I think, goes for gas work, other utility work. We softened that language to simply say that the city should consider co-occurring safety, accessibility, and complete and green streets improvements.
So how much? Okay, so this is a revised policy, but how much are we doing? Are we doing this today already, or is this really going to be changing changing the way we do business as a city?
It's a very good question. In theory, the new policy is, I guess I should say, in spirit, the new policy is identical to the old policy. Much of this is just vision statement. The largest element that we were trying to specifically work in as an evolution of our process is greater collaboration on what we termed major capital projects between Public Works, the Planning Department, and the TMC. Theoretically, the old policy called for this, but it didn't have much in the way of implementation steps, details of that collaboration. And what we had previously really broke down under the old administration. In specifically sections 4 and 10, 4 being the exceptions section, section 10 being the implementation steps section, we tried to make much more clear and direct this idea of what projects really must have a slightly higher level of scrutiny, where there's no where collaboration makes the most sense. And independent, I guess related but technically separate from this policy, we have already started working on that type of collaboration with Director Clinkscale, with Director Zampt. So there is a separate moving thread underway that is that I would basically say is one of the major downstream goals of this. I can speak a little bit more about that if you'd like as well. But that was the major change.
No, I was just kind of looking for a big picture synopsis. As the newer council person, I kind of came in an era where there was not a lot of collaboration with the city on pretty much anything, which we realized.
Mm-hmm.
And putting this front and center, just like the charter amendment we put on the ballot, create some guardrails per se. So everybody sort of knows, hey, we really do need to collaborate, and this is when we need to bring people together. I saw the $100,000 threshold, for example, just in a scroll a moment ago, and it's like, okay, well, you don't have to collaborate as much if you're dealing with a $10,000 project, but a $100,000 project, yeah, absolutely, someone needs to.
The planning department should at least be in the room. I mean, I'm willing to talk down my own experience plenty. The Transportation and Mobility Committee has a lot of talented members and a lot of expertise. But I had heard and was very concerned that a lot of even what I would consider major projects, hundreds of thousands of dollars, were really happening from conception to execution without planning even in the room at all.
Does Cleveland Heights have a seat on the NOACA board?
Oh, yeah. You're welcome.
Well, yeah.
As a doing, I did.
Well, I know that there was a shared seat. And I don't remember if it was, when I hear the word we at home, I can't differentiate sometimes if it's Cleveland Heights or Shaker, obviously, because of my wife being the planning director. Oh, and you're wearing your NOACA jacket. Okay, nice.
They had the holiday party this afternoon. So I thought I would pull it out there.
Yeah. So, well, I guess that's not really here nor there, I suppose, regarding this conversation. But I mean, it's that kind of stuff, though, when you sort of have staff members that are working closely with organizations like NOACA. It helps you get grants. It helps you get wisdom. It helps you.
And the task forces that have met this last year also that are getting grants for traffic calming, pedestrian and bicyclist safety, that I think you were on at least one of them, were you not?
The Comprehensive and Equitable Safety Action Plan.
CSAP. I would like to ask you this question. Were you on the committee, the Transportation Committee, in 2018 when they drafted the legislation, the original Complete and Green Streets legislation?
It goes way back before that.
Okay.
The committee was initiated, if I have the date right, 2013, quite a while ago. And it was with a certain amount of fanfare, frankly. A terrific committee was assembled, lots of staff involvement, even council involvement. Mary Dunbar was the council representative at the time. Richard Wong was the planning director. There was somebody from community relations who kind of did all the administrative work for the committee. It was really a well-oiled machine, frankly. Our first order of business was complete streets. That was, at least that was my goal as a committee member. I was co-chairman at the time. Mark Lefkowitz was the other co-chair, so he could probably give you some background as well. But we wanted that complete streets legislation to go forward, and I remember Richard put quite a bit of effort into working with us and getting some language together. I made a presentation on behalf of the committee to the council. Dennis Wilcox was the mayor. It's like ancient history, isn't it?
Yeah.
But digging into the past, but it was very well received. The council was very enthused. I walked away thinking, boy, I said, that was easy. Usually you expect some blowback, some controversy, but there was none. It was that well received. City manager at the time, Tanisha, decided that it needed more than complete streets, so she cooked up the idea of green being added to it, so completing green. Nobody particularly objected to it because it really made sense. We're all okay with it. But then it dragged on and on and on and on and on and on. And it just, I won't say disappeared, but it really kind of fell away from everybody's consciousness, except for the few of us that loved the idea of complete streets. And eventually it was approved, and Cleveland Heights was recognized nationally as a leader in it. And everybody on the committee just felt great, that we really did something useful, that we helped our city. We did exactly what that committee was really all about. In a big picture sense, there were many other projects that came forward that we discussed all over the city, from big issues to little issues. Safe routes to school, for example, that was one.
Mary Dunbar.
Yeah, Mary Dunbar. Does anybody know how she's doing, by the way?
I have no idea.
We should find out.
I should, well, anyway.
So I'm asking this for history because to explain this moment, why we took it on, why the committee took it on. Because did you get the sense that being on the charter group for this legislation that it was implemented?
On paper. In reality, we were pretty disappointed. There were, it wasn't naturally followed. It took a lot of prodding for the staff and whoever was involved to do the right thing. And in fact, I think it sort of even led to Sam Bell creating his business. One of the issues was striping of Noble Road. And finally, after lots of, wanted to make sure there were bike lanes in there. The county wouldn't do that. They said, well, we'll put a line down the center and that's that. So that was Sam invented a business as a result of that. So good for him. But one example I think that to me, which really stands out as a failure, in my humble opinion, the intersection of Fairmont and Coventry, an issue that we were concerned about from the moment we were constituted. So, to the city's credit, they got funding for repaving it and including the funding for the signals. So, we thought we would be involved in the process. We weren't. It comes time one day, they're going to drive down Fairmont, Cedar, and I see that Coventry. There's a signal up there. We had nothing to do with that. There was incredible expertise on this committee. People who just got fed up and disappeared.
This was the intersection that, the very unusual angle that could have been a peanut roundabout at,
Could have been anything.
could have been anything.
We
Other
had,
than what it ended up remaining.
That disaster.
you know, we had several concepts of just where to put the signals. And I think you still, drive up, you're in total confusion, in my point.
No, you're right.
It's just,
People don't know where the stop line is.
so it's a touch better than it was, but
I'll add to public record forever that I have gone the wrong way down those streets before, so.
well, you're not alone. And I pull up there and I think, where am I going? Even as somebody who should know the area, I still get confused. It's a sad story. The only explanation we got, why wasn't the committee just informed? So we should have been, not that we were being asked to design it, but at least just to take a look at it, sign off on it. We were told the county did it, and that was the end of that. Well, that's no explanation, but that's the explanation we got.
And that to me is a picture of why we spent time as an individual and as a committee looking at this to look at why wasn't the implementation. Because we have that happen in legislation frequently, where we pass a legislation and it's not implemented. Unless you've got somebody that's really following up on stuff. So my hope for what you've done here is that because you built the foundation of relationships with these two very important, crucial directors, Director Zampton, Director Klingscale, that we will see implementation of this legislation, which has been updated. And I really am ready to move it forward to council, and I'd like to know where you're at as well, Councilor Bosch.
Well, I think you should move it forward. I mean, you have more expertise in this. You've been living it much longer than myself. You've spanned across multiple committees. I like what I see. I love the idea of collaborating. I don't think we utilize our committees enough anyways, and many things. Yeah. And I think maybe at some point people thought it was just bothersome, which is why, I think the former mayor wanted absolute control. And he also had other motives, which we know, but we don't need to discuss that right now.
Yeah.
It was such an opportunity. And I don't claim any giant level of expertise, but everybody in that committee was willing to go out and review the situation, be helpful. That's all we wanted to do.
Yeah.
Well, that's how you get a better solution. You get a better result.
What's that?
You get a better result that way.
Yeah.
That's
to think that the city council, the city staff, the administration has a group of not just concerned citizens, but concerned citizens with some expertise, willing to go out and be helpful.
I should probably also, just for the record as well, talk maybe a little bit about the collaboration that we're currently looking at under this.
You can do that so I can get Councilor Posh on his way. Yeah, that'd be great.
I'll wrap it quick.
So we do have a recommendation from both members of the committee to bring it back to council and say we're ready to move this forward. So that's where we stand. So go ahead.
Yeah. I'll keep it brief as well. One of the major projects that we were targeting and the collaboration that's currently underway with planning and public works is specifically around the annual resurfacing process. One of the big challenges that we have is that most of the streets in the city will never see a major grant. State, county, federal, local. Most of the roadways, they get resurfaced once every, 5, 10, 15, whatever the cadence may be. Not even that usually. And when they do, they tear it up and they put it back down the way it was. Doesn't matter if it was designed 20 years ago, 40, 100. We have a lot of 100-year-old roads. and 100-year-old designs. What makes a safe street today and an accessible street today is very different from what made one in the days of streetcars and Model Ts. These intersections show up on our crash maps. They can be, accident hotspots. They can just lead to all sorts of undesirable effects. So the goal here was to focus first on the resurfacing, quick build stuff, cheap build stuff, with the goal being that we integrate, the cheapest and simplest safety improvements using really just paint and plastic flex posts into the process. And that anything that's a mid-sized project that comes out of this, this intersection happens to be high crash and we need to fix a little thing about it, those would come out of this process as secondary projects. And they would go directly to council with a description, a projected price tag, and basically give council the opportunity to look at these, I really call them mid-priority projects as we go around the city. It makes sure that we get to everything. It won't be fast, it won't be sexy, but it guarantees that in 20 or 30 years, we will have slowly gotten around to every street in the city and made it a little safer.
The priority for 26, if we're talking right now,
Yep.
is any of the streets that on her resurfacing list that fit the criteria of being 100,000 or more,
Yep.
then it will be a project that planning and design will be involved with. And somebody from the committee, if not the whole committee, will be updated on what's going on with it. So
And
that
we're
disappointment doesn't get manifested again.
Great.
and Ken and I are already speaking about this. I'm hoping that we can meet with Director Clinkscale in January to specifically talk about that.
And that's super. I'm happy to hear that. So that's where I'm at right now. Do you have anything else?
No, I mean, I guess the only thing I'd like to add is during the finance committee meeting, we talked about sustainable sources for the road work. And, we have never gotten confirmation from our staff, but we got confirmation from our Dan Horrigan that, a city our size should be putting about, $9 million a year toward its roads. And we're putting, three and a half?
Plus the 1.5 that you added, so if it gets implemented.
Yeah, but it's still, we're still grossly underwater when it comes to the amount of money we need for our roads. And are there other sources of funding besides, the, I believe, gasoline tax that we currently spend on our roads? I remember, and I don't know if it was a bond that University Heights floated, but University Heights essentially did, and I'm gonna pick a number out of thin air, more than 50% of their roads pretty much within like a 2 or 3 year span. It was a major investment in their roads. And this was before Mayor Brennan, I believe, was the mayor. And that was, you could just tell the difference. The city shined. It's kind of what you were able to see when you walked in, and it was attractive. And, I credit that as, there's a lot of youth that are very attracted to that city, and it's a magnet. And I think that was one of the things that brought them in. And they not only did the roads, they did the curbs, which is another huge thing.
Yeah.
Expensive. So the committees that you guys are working on, we need good funding for these roads, and you have expertise who can help us find other sources of funding, legislate it, or make sure that we've got the resources. We know this has been ignored over the last many years.
30 or 40, yeah.
Oh, maybe longer.
Yeah, that'd be a great charge for the committee.
And on this one, actually, I think I owe you personally an apology, because about a year ago, you suggested speed cameras as part of a comprehensive traffic calming effort. Those have the side effect of some amount of revenue generation. I had been led to believe that the legal framework around this was much more fraught than it actually is. A number of the most restrictive rules have actually been overturned in court since they were passed. The current state of this is actually much more feasible for especially a school zone targeted traffic calming program utilizing cameras. the funds from that could certainly be used for traffic calming. It's something that the committee, I think, is planning to explore in the coming year.
Well, you could generate monies with automated cameras in school zones.
Yep.
You can't generate money in other places. You can charge for a ticket, but then what happens is the state takes that money away from you as sort of a deterrent. But if the core root is trying to think safety versus revenue,
Right.
it's a wash essentially. I mean, you're getting your residents for a while until they get accustomed to following the law.
Yeah, there's a certain small tail of habitual rule breakers. But yes, this is probably more appropriate for a different venue.
Yeah.
I'll say that I think it has potential, and leave it at that for now.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming to our meeting this
Pleasure.
evening. I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 6:32.